What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about the newest film from director Ryusuke Hamaguchi, who made one of my favorite films of the decade thus far in Drive My Car. That movie is so beautiful, well shot, with amazing performances. It's incredibly thought-provoking, and it really made me excited to see whatever he was going to make next. And I knew very little about this film before I went in to watch it. I read a brief plot description, but knowing how much I love Drive My Car, I was really looking forward to watching this, and the movie I'm going to be discussing with you today is Evil Does Not Exist. Evil Does Not Exist is directed by Ryusuke Hamaguchi. Takumi and his daughter Hana live in Mizubiki Village, close to Tokyo. One day, the village inhabitants become aware of plans to build a camping site near Takumi's house, offering city residents a comfortable escape to nature. So, I was very excited to watch this movie. As I said, Drive My Car, one of my favorite films of the decade so far. And this movie is absolutely incredible. It's very different than Drive My Car. There are some similarities in the structure and the pacing of the film, but similar to that movie, this film has a very clear idea of what it's trying to convey, and it does such a beautiful job at conveying the message, not only through the really well-written dialogue, but through the incredible visuals and the overall symbolism that the film is showing you through certain visual sequences. And I just respect Hamaguchi so much as a director. This movie really moved me, and I'm very excited to talk to you about it today. So, plot description, very simplistic. We are introduced to Takumi at the beginning of the film, and he is chopping wood out in the middle of nowhere, and he's collecting water and doing all these very mundane tasks. And we see him go to a school to pick up his daughter. He gets to the school and they say, "Oh, your daughter decided to walk home." So he ends up going back to his house, finding his daughter in the woods. The two of them just talk to each other, and we hear some gunshots off in the distance, and they just both kind of ignore it. And we see him going about his day-to-day life. Well, he talks to some people in the town and finds out that there is a corporation that is coming to their very small community outside of Tokyo to discuss building a glamping site, which, if you're unfamiliar, glamping is exactly how it sounds: glamorous camping. It's people who want to go out into the woods to camp, but they want to have TVs, they want to have all of the things that they have in their house put outside. So this company has these subsidies from COVID that they want to use in order to make money quickly and to turn a profit really fast. So they come to this community and they hold this conference with the members of the community who are not happy with the proposed plans. There's all these different things about where the sewage is going to run off and how it's going to impact people in the community, how it could damage nature, impact the wildlife in the area. And the entirety of the film is the two people who come representing the company spending time in the community with Takumi, learning more about the people while also trying to find a way to convince them to let them build this glamping site to appease their boss at their corporation. So as I said, I thought this movie was fantastic. For starters, the performances in this movie are exceptional. Whenever you're making a movie like this that feels very slice of life and very realistic, it helps to have actors who can really just live and breathe their roles. And everyone in this movie just feels like a real person. Like, it doesn't feel like glamorous Hollywood performance. It feels like people living their lives and interacting in a very realistic way, to where in the first like 10-15 minutes of the movie, I was so lost in it I forgot I was watching a movie. And those are my favorite types of movies, are the ones where you can completely lose yourself in the performances and the world. The cinematography in this film is stunning. There are some shots in this movie. There's a shot of a literal pile of shit in this movie that is just so perfectly framed. There's like literal steam rolling off of it, and it's just gorgeous. The way Hamaguchi and his cinematographer frame shots, not only in this but in Drive My Car, it's just remarkable. There's so much attention to detail in every single frame of the movie. And those are my favorite movies to watch, are ones that, even with such a simplistic premise like this film, that you're watching it and images just completely and totally stick out in your mind. And as I said, this movie has a very simplistic plot, but it's speaking volumes. One of the things is, in our day-to-day lives, so much of how our lives work and operate are directly impacted by situations that we have very little control over, whether that be how much we pay in tax, like where we are able to live based on the amount of money we can make in a certain area. It's all determined by the government and corporations and things where we can have a say trying to vote in politicians and do things of that nature. But for the most part, we're controlled by other entities, even in like the products that we buy and the food that we eat and all of those things. So many external factors of our lives are controlled by things that are completely out of our hands. And I think Hamaguchi does a brilliant job in this film showing this community that has developed this way of life that is so out of the norm of like big hustling bustling cities, and people are happy with where they are. There's this woman that speaks when they're doing the proposal about how she opened this udon noodle shop, and she originally did that in Tokyo, and she found out that like the quality of water and the things that she was doing to make the udon, that it wasn't the same when she moved out into this community, and that building this glamping site and with where they're planning on building the sewage runoff, she's not going to be able to get water from the same place, and it's essentially like the business that she's worked so hard for is going to go under because of the impact of this corporation building on this land that these people live in. And watching these speeches from the people who live in the community, it was just heartbreaking, because at the end of the day, multi-million dollar corporations are going to find a way to get in there whether people say yes or no, and they get strong-armed and they get pushed out of the way, and it's so difficult for the little guy to succeed. And I think Hamaguchi does such a brilliant job at showcasing that, and then constantly showing us the beauty of the nature and where they live and just how gorgeous this area is, and showing what would happen if this place gets overran by this glamping site. And I really liked that a lot about this movie. There's also a lot of symbolism with the utilization of the wildlife, especially deer in this community, and some of the moments that happen involving the deer. I just thought they were so beautifully thought out and so representative of the idea as a whole. And I'm always really impressed when directors can add little things in like that that speak volumes to the overall story. A thing that I was really impressed with this movie as well is sometimes it feels like a horror movie. It's very ominous. There's these random gunshots that happen throughout the movie. There's all these moments where you're constantly lingering on shots, wondering what's going to happen. And the third act really went in a direction that I was not expecting whatsoever. But once again, I think the climax of the film speaks volumes to the message that Hamaguchi is going for here, talking about these people's lives and living in this beautiful secluded area, and it being overrun by these people who truly do not care about the people who live there. It's they joke early on about how the people who are coming to speak to them, they're like talent scouts for an acting organization that are literally just hired by this business to go and try to convince people to let this site be built. And when those two people go back to speak to their boss doesn't care at all. All he's thinking about is the subsidies from COVID and how they can turn a quick profit, and they need to make this happen now and appease them in one way or the other with little things, but we're never going to be able to change the landscape of this, and they're eventually just going to have to get over it. And it's deeply saddening, and like I said, it's so completely and totally indicative of every facet of our society and how like government controls us, and like I said, even from the food you buy and just every little thing, how it's so much out of your control that a lot of those places will give you the idea that you have control even though you really don't. And it's just such a thought-provoking film that I found myself after it was over just sitting there thinking about each and every detail. And that's what I love about Hamaguchi as a director. His films on the surface seem so simplistic, but there is so much more going on, and he's such an empathetic director. And Drive My Car really showcased that to me, and just how he sees human beings and the compassion that he has for human beings. And this movie is no exception. It feels very similar, just the empathy towards these people who just want to live their day-to-day lives. And it is a movie that I will not be forgetting anytime in the near future. And if any of this sounds interesting to you, I would 100% recommend renting this movie. It was phenomenal. So have you seen Evil Does Not Exist? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was incredible, and it just further cements Hamaguchi as one of my favorite directors. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.